Okay, we just have one more photo to crop and process, or just to crop. And this one looks like the Grand Canyon. There's a lot of parts of it I like. I think I want this area in the middle. So I will crop by hitting return, return, holding down shift to get a perfect square. Oops. Holding down shift to make it bigger or smaller as I want. Oh, it's so tough to find ones I'm happy with. Let's see. So maybe like that. Eh. And you can always do a crop within your crop too. Yeah, that will work. All right, so now I make a duplicate, I go to image levels, I make sure that within just that crop, it's optimized. It makes sense. This one's pretty spot on. And then I'm going to flatten it. And then I'm going to change its image size to be 3 inches by 3 inches by 350 pixels per inch. And save that as a new name. So Carl Crop 1. Okay, I have all of those open in Photoshop. They're all the same size. These are all the different files I made from my different exposures. Now I need to go to Window, Arrange, Float All in Windows. And then I can hit, I'll zoom in so they're all at 50%. Get off the crop tool. And then I can hit F9 and see them all on the screen together and decide which one do I want to be in the center. And I'd say probably this one. So I'm going to build it from the center out. And you do that by going to Image. Well, first make a duplicate of it. Then go to Image, Canvas Size. And you're going to make it 12 inches wide by 9 inches tall with white as the extension color. Hit Command 0 to fit it all on the screen. Go to View, Show, Grid. And make sure your rulers are showing. If your rulers aren't, you can hit Command R or you can check rulers under the View window. Then you're going to use the Move tool and click on the ruler and drag out guides on each of the 4 sides of your 3-inch center exposure. And then you're going to drag guides a 1/2 inch to either side. So there are 2 of those little boxes on either side. Then you can turn off your grid by using Command apostrophe. Toggle it on and off, but you'll still see your guides. And then as long as these are flattened, you can just click, drag and drop them in. Ooh, I never resized this one. So let me delete that, make sure I go back here, check the image size. It needs to be 3 inches by 3 inches by 350 pixels per inch. Save that in there. Okay, now drag and drop, be the right size. And close it. Next one, drag and drop, be the right size. And it should just nest in there. And then to get rid of seeing your guides, you simply hit Command semicolon to toggle them on or off, or you can go to View, and under Show, you can check and uncheck them. And now, because they're all floating on their own layers, you can play with different rotations if you want, because they're square. Like I might try rotating this one 90 degrees, because this one's so horizontal. But I kind of like it as it is. Maybe I try rotating this one. That's kind of nice.
It's 12 by 9, right?
Yeah, 12 inches wide by 9 inches tall. Ooh, I like that. I like the vertical spilling off. Okay. And because I made a duplicate of this center one, I can actually rotate that one as well individually. I can even flip the negative. And I can see if I like that better or like what I had originally. And I like this because it kind of carries the curve over. So I'm going to leave it that way. When you're all done, you say File, Save As. You can give it a new name, and I'm going to call it Carl with all my different layers. Assignment 2 PSD to the desktop. And then I'm going to save it again, Save As a JPEG to the desktop. And making sure that it's under 5 megabytes. So even at maximum quality as a JPEG, it's still only 3 megabytes, which is great. Then I can minimize Photoshop, go to the desktop, find those files, those ones that are finished. I'm going to mark my PSD with a green dot, mark my JPEG with an orange dot. These are the finished files that I would go back to. And I'm even going to put the screenshot in there with those files so I know how I process them in case I wanted to match it again. And I go to the Assignment 2 folder within PhotoBucket. I click Upload and I do that there. So navigate to the right folder, then click Upload. Then bring in your JPEG and remember to title it with your name. And once that's done, you've got your second assignment uploaded. And the idea is you want to try to keep improving upon your progress as you go. And some of you have already uploaded. So we're off to a good start. All right. Now, we talked about the advantages and disadvantages of digital. The big disadvantage is you've made these beautiful photos. You've taken these beautiful exposures, some of which you might want to do something with later in color. So it's all about organization. So make a new folder, call it Assignment 2 or something like that. It's all about texture. This is where you're going to put these different files. First and foremost, you're going to put your PSD and your JPEG in there. Those are your working files. But you'll also want all of your different process files. And you might even want a folder for your raw exposures before they had any processing. Now, RAW is a type of file format that your camera, if you have an SLR, can produce for you that then just has to be processed and compressed into a JPEG before you can edit it. But when I say raw exposures, I just mean that they are without any editing on your part. So they're just straight from the camera. All right. And if I wanted to go back in and get different croppings of these, I could. If I wanted to process them differently, I could, because within each PSD, if I was duplicating along the way, I have all the different steps. And so I can kind of learn my lessons again as I go through. Okay, I want to show you quickly, now that we've done it the hard way, the easy way to do it. But you need to understand how it works. So if I open up one of my raw exposures, let's do one that I didn't use. So let's maybe use this one, which has some good potential. So I want to play with processing this. Instead of making the duplicate and doing the whole saturation thing, this is another option you can play with, and it will be on the tutorial for you to watch later. I'm going to go up to Actions. And you can get to Actions by either clicking on this little play button shortcut or going up to Window and clicking Actions. And I have loaded into all of your versions of Photoshop my preferred actions, some of which I have created myself, others which I have gotten from resources online that are meant to be shared. Now, what actions are basically mini programs within Photoshop. And if you go to the black, white, sepia action, you have to kind of open the folder and then click on it. It's like choosing a shelf and then choosing a VHS tape from the shelf to play. So I've chosen the VHS action I want to play, and then I press play. And then I've modified all these actions to first make a duplicate file that's named after the action. So this is now in a new file called full white sepia full control action. And it's what I use when I'm in a hurry and I want to make something monochrome. Now it looks like it did like kind of a bad job, like it overdid it, because this action is optimized for pretty ordinary photos. But what it gives me is what are called adjustment layers that I can then adjust individually. So I start by kind of turning them all off, and then one by one I turn them on and I see if I agree with it. So I like that exposure level, I like that filter, I like that channel mixer, but maybe it's a little bright, so I'm going to make adjustments there to the channel mixer. And these are much more refined tools, but they can work really well for processing to monochrome using the programming of what's called the gray output channel. Then the hue saturation, this is sepia, but maybe I want to change that. So what I used before was down to a 6, and it was 40 something with a 6. 47.6, I think is what I was using. But maybe I want to do something different with this one. So you can play with it. So maybe I want something more like this. Then the next one, this is brightness contrast, and I don't like that one. Instead, I'm going to go to levels. And I'm going to control my histogram. Wow, look how even that histogram is. It's a thing of beauty. So that looks good. Now I'm just going to crop it, right? So actions are kind of shortcut ways that you can set up your files. And we are going to be using them, but I want to make sure you know how to make your own as well. So we will revisit, and eventually we'll be making our own actions. But I'm liking that texture shot. So I might revisit that for the project. And if I feel there's a weak one, I can always replace it. And maybe process them all this way using the action and trying to control it that way. So going from that to that in just a few simple steps by using actions. We'll be using them a lot more later. So when you get a chance, you might play with that on some of your photos. And I'll just save this as black, white, sepia, full control action, texture demo. And I'll save that as a PSD into my folder too. because I can adjust all of these individually.